I ended up with a Dumble amp because I was rehearsing with, I think Bonnie Raitt at this rehearsal space, and we went to go on break. So it's just a rehearsal place. There's no people there. But we go on break, and somebody, like, I think it was Freebo in the band, he goes, her bass player, he goes, "Hey, there's a guy here who wants to meet you, Dennis." And I go, "Okay." This guy Howard. And so this guy Howard walks up, really instantly a charming character. Like, he's got a kind of weird half grin on his face, and he's got a funny vibe, and he goes, "Dennis." And I'm like, "Howard." He goes, "I want to meet you." He goes, "I love your playing." And I go, "Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad you like it. Thanks." You know, like, and he's like, you know, he goes, I make guitar amps." And I go, "Oh, that's awesome." And he goes, "I want to make you an amp." I'm like, "Have you made them for other people?" And he goes, "Well," he goes, "David Lindley, who I grew up with, he goes, he plays my amps." And I go, "David gets a great sound, like great." And he goes, "Thank you." And he goes, "I want to make you an amp." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. How would that work?" I go, "I don't know, maybe." And he goes, "Look, let's meet up again. We'll have like lunch or something, and we'll talk about what you want out of an amp, and I'll tell you about what I do, and we'll see if something neat happens with that synergy." I go, "Okay, that sounds like fun." And I liked him. I just really liked this guy. So I go, "This sounds good to me. This will be fun, you know." And not the amp necessarily, but hanging out will be cool. Yeah, he seems cool. And so we meet up a couple days later, and we talk about stuff. I remember he asked me, "Is there anything that your amps lack right now that you wish you had in your sound?" And I was like, "I'd really love to have a presence control for being in the studio where I can adjust presence, but it's a preset. Like I could have a setting I like, and I can switch it in and out, or I can then vary it depending on how somebody's mic'd me or how things are sounding or whatever." And he goes, "Oh," he goes, "that's neat. I've been thinking about presence controls." He goes, "I can do that. I would do that. That sounds cool." I go, "Okay." We get to the end of this conversation. This is the funny part. We get to the end of this conversation, and I go, "Well, I have one question about this, Howard. It sounds real good and stuff, and it'd be fun to check out one of your amps. But like, how do you make out just making amps for people? Are you like rich? You know, is your daddy like oil guy or something? Like, what's your thing?" And he goes, "Well, no, you have to pay for it." I go, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "The invitation is that I'll make you an amp, not that I'll make it for free." I'm like, "Oh my God." I go, "Well, how much?" And I don't remember how much it was, but like, it seemed like a lot at the time. And he told me, and I go, "Well, that's a lot of money, Howard." And he goes, "It'll be really good." And by then I'm in, you know, like I like him, and he's going to do some stuff I want. And I go, "All right, okay, well, that sounds good. Let's do it. You know, I'm in. Let's do it. Why don't you make me an amp, you know?" And I would tell people, it took him, you know, months. And people would say, you know, "What's your next amp going to be?" I go, "Oh, this guy I met, he's making me an amp, you know." And it might be cool. I have no idea. I don't know what his trip is really. He makes amps for David Lindley, and those sound really good, you know. So I stayed friends with Howard forever. Howard's really a special person, so I loved Howard, you know. But I can remember the first session I used it on, where I think I might have gone a couple sessions where I stuck with, you know, my usual. I think I had a Fender Blackface Deluxe and a couple things. I had a stereo rig that I would use sometimes with like a Rivera modified Boss chorus. I had all these kind of, you know, I had my little shtick already going. But so I did a couple sessions, and the amp would be sitting there, and I hadn't played through it yet. And I don't remember what the artist was, but a session finally came where I go, "I think this is the one to try that new amp, see what it sounds like." And it's just, you know, the engineer mic'd it up. I think it might have been Roger Nichols, actually. It was, I forget what the project was, but I think Roger was the engineer. And he mics it up, you know, the Steely Dan guy. And he mics it up, and I start playing, and I'm sitting out with the amp, and I go, "Whoa, this sounds good. This is a good amp. And I start playing with it, and it's got the little trim pot adjustment right there for the presence, which I can still find on Instinct, if you noticed. Yeah. I can just, I know where that knob is. Switch it in and out. It's like, I start playing with it, I go, this is good. I get some sound, I start playing something, and Roger comes out and he goes, that sounds amazing. It's like nothing, I'm doing nothing in there. It's amazing. He goes, let's go. I go, okay. So I go, this is gonna be good. So I think that was the answer to your question. It was kind of an end around, yeah. It wasn't something that I controlled, but I had suddenly kind of ended up with a little edge over there. And definitely, but for a while that wasn't impressive to other people. Other than that, it sounded great. It wasn't like you'd roll it in the room, people go, oh, you have a Dumble. Like, people are like, oh, who makes that? You know, I mean, it was more like that, because he wasn't well known or anything. But, you know, and then I got to where I used it a lot, and I tried it on stage some, and I felt like, well, like with loud people, today it's not like that when you play loud, but like then I go with loud people and stuff, it's only 50 watts. Perfect for recording. And live, I go, sometimes I wish there was a little more juice, right? So, you know, I'm hanging out with Howard one day in his 5-story pagoda in Pasadena, you know, like you do with a Howard. And I'm like, God, you know, he goes, do you want another amp or anything? I go, you know, I've wondered about a 100-watt version. You know, what would that be like? And he goes, oh. He goes, yeah, could be fun. And he goes, I've been wanting to do something in black suede. And I go, let's do it. I go, how about a 100-watt one? You know, same basic thing. Same, I like this speaker, you know. It's the same speaker, all that sort of stuff. But I go, do it as a combo, 100 watts, black suede. Done. So, you know, a few months later, that one's done. Never quite sounded as good. This one's got it. And that one sounds good. This one's got it, though. And so then, some years, I was producing then, and I had just, you know, a studio full of amps for people to use. And somebody really, really hit me up hard for that black one. They really, really wanted that. And I guess they'd gotten more valuable then. And he finally offered me a price that made me realize he needed it more than I did. And so I sold him that one, because I never liked it as much. I think he loves it. Kind of saying about, you know, you want to, for the golden rule is always be read, you know. And it's one thing to try to manufacture something that really has it, you know. It can be done. It's hard to do. You can set the stage for it more than you can make it, you know what I mean? But like, I think in our world, in entertainment maybe in general, having a sensitivity to when you're in the vicinity of it is really valuable. And it's like, that's always been more my speed, is that I'm, you know, I've had an engineer turn to me and go, in a recording situation, go, where are we eating tonight? And I go, if you're not in record, we're not eating. Because I go, did you just notice what's happening? You're not listening. And you go, the guys in the room are jamming and this amazing thing is happening. And so then I look over and that 20-year-old intern is in record over there, because I've said this shit before. And they're like, I go, good. The engineer, all of a sudden, he's focused. Now he's in his gig. And he just needed a little, like, he's not sensing the it, but like, to me, I don't have a job. If I can't get in the vicinity of it, I got nothing to work on. A lot of the great guitar players I've you know, been lucky enough to get to work with or know or whatever tend to be you know, they have 100 guitars and they have 4 amps kind of people. But for whatever reason, I've always been the opposite. Like, I wanted to have 3 or 4 guitars that really worked, and I wanted 100 amps. And I don't have 100, but I have a bunch of amps. I mean, I got really into Ampeg amps are cool. I've tried more modern, and I mean, I got a couple of great Voxes. I've tried kind of modern versions of amps a decent amount. I have a Matchless, it's great. It's like a really good sounding one. I've gotten lots of compliments on it. But the amp me as a player, and a lot of when players would come over, you know, it's like, no, you can't have it. It's my Dumble. Nope, my Dumble. They come over and they're like, this one just kind of has more. It's just a standout. It's you know, I have a blackface Fender Deluxe that's great. I mean, it's a great sounding blackface Fender Deluxe. You play through it and you go, there it is. That's that blackface Fender thing. I love it. It's great. But I think too, for my preferences, you know, this, I could just do things with this I just can't do with those others. It just sounds a way that it's just the most special. You know, if I was still doing sessions now, there's no way I'd part with that. That's like, can't touch me. I can tell and I can really hear, I can even hear it on record, if somebody's getting this kind of sound, but in a more matchless kind of way. It's like, no, this is like you took a Fender, an old Fender Bassman, and you made it perfect. You made it able to do the best thing a Fender Bassman could ever do. There's probably one Fender Bassman somewhere that sounds as good as this sounds. One. You know what I mean? I haven't heard it, but